world. Patrica O'Connor, Frida Reba Darcy. Here in the house, you can kind of see her underneath the china ball back there. We're going to do a quick look at our seeds before we make our way out into the sunshine. They started popping yesterday with a vengeance. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11. 11 so far. Yesterday, night before last, before I went to bed, there's our co-star, Frida Reba Darcy, in the house. Our music is this guy. The song is Tubby and Steve Adams. That's copyright free. Anyway, today on the Bonsai Balcony, we're going to make our way out to our seeds are looking good. I'll just finish off that thought. We are at 11. I would expect to see more of those by the end of the day and more of those tomorrow. They seem to be not really affected by being 2 years old. Once they started popping, they started doing just like I've always known them to do. They kind of do it in force. The variables this time were the weather. It was nice out here, cold here, nice out here, cold out here, nice out here, cold out here. While I was doing that inside in the kitchen, I gotta say that because I've noticed that before, that on a warmer day outside, the trays in the kitchen would spring forth more sprouts. Maybe that's just a coincidence. But I would also say that I think the part where these are Frida snacks, and there's one I just dropped. She'll find that in a minute. Here you go, babe. And yeah, she does know the difference between this and the tree snacks, which are this, guys. Biogold. They look like this. Hers look like this. It's totally different smell. This smells like little sausages. This smells like mint, which is cool. Also, people like mint. Most other things do not like mint, and for that reason, that might be why she. Now, I've heard other dogs will just hoover those right up, but yeah, that smells like mint to me. Anyway, and a little bit like, and a hint of what I would think would be a fertilizer smell. But you know what? This is what we're talking about today. We're just kind of subtle about our lead-in. Yesterday's show was a little bit about just tips for beginners. And I had stated, and this doesn't have to be a follow-up. You don't have to run back and see what we did. But I had stated that if you're new to bonsai, learn enough to keep your tree alive the first day, and spend part of that day learning how to keep it alive for the first week, and then spend part of that week learning how to make it a month, and then a season, and then the next season, and so forth. There's a lot to be said for that. There are definitely things that you could do that would kill a tree in a day. Not watering a tree and then taking off for work for 2 days, and then having the temperature shoot up to 3 digits or close to 3 digits. That would be a way to not survive a day, right there. More so than overwatering. Overwatering tends to take longer, but you can definitely do that too. So, that's just kind of general rules of thumb. And those are kind of the things that, like I was saying, you would learn to survive the first day of bonsai, and then your first week. And then, it's kind of like just getting up on skates and getting going. Having more than one species, having more than one of the same species goes a long way towards helping you figure out your balance when it comes to how much or how little water we want to be looking at. Now that's what leads us into, for me, having gotten that, I was a little long in moving on to fertilizing, and also for me, pest prevention, be it a fungus, be it a bug, be it a spore, be it a aphid, and you said bugs already. Anyway, those were two things that I was kind of lagging on because I wanted to make sure I had that water thing down. And then I just kind of coasted to see how we played with that. And we played with that until we started getting, until we started seeing illness in our trees. We had dieback here. I had some issues with one of my pines. I had, when that starts happening, you start looking at cause and effect. I'm always trying to think about cause and effect. It seems to be a line that Pat repeats often. And you can do that to somewhat. You can do that, and somewhat it can be misleading. A weak tree will bring on trouble. A lot of times when you see that you've got some predator is going after your tree, you may also see that what happened first was that tree got weak and facilitated those predators, almost like asking them in. And that's actually a little bit more to that than what I know. Trees will put out a scent that says all is not well, so that things that will know to come invade based on that scent. It might be something that they do to remove portions of themselves that aren't doing well, or it might be something that happens to save the field, But they will do that. They will tell the world that they're not feeling well, and then bugs and predators will come attack. So long story short, a healthy tree is one of the best ways that you can minimize the use of insecticides or systemic treatments or some of the other things that we might find ourselves doing to get rid of some sort of infestation. A healthy tree will go a long way towards. So that was one thing I had to learn, that a little bit of watering when you're supposed to and not when you're not supposed to, and dog in the sunshine, and then learning how to feed. Now, about the systemic thing, about the bug stuff, I do run a systemic treatment through my trees twice a year. And by twice a year, I actually mean 4 times a year. Because you do it once, you fertilize, you pour in something that has a systemic treatment in it, and then you come back 2 weeks later and do that again, and that's one treatment. Then I come back sometime later, and like if I've done this in January, which is typically when I do that, I will come back in July and run it through again. So that's kind of what I learned about that, and that's just so far, that and keeping my trees healthy have gone a long way towards making sure that I don't have a lot of bug issues. Now, having said that, this guy got aphids this past winter. I had to go through. I just saw it just about the time it happened. It didn't get too far before I was in there relentlessly. I just spent I was going to do this for Saturday Night Live Bonsai, and I saw we had aphids, and I just blew everything off and just went at it with tweezers and stuff. Anyway, what we were still talking about is our, you've watched me put down a little bit of BioGold. 3 pieces of BioGold in the palm of the hand is a dose. And a dose is considered the area that is the palm of my, about 4 inches square, would be an area that's considered a dose. And so you look at how many 4 inches square, 4 inches square, 4 inches square, 4 inches square, 4 inches, 4 inches. And those are all going to be places where I'm going to be placing out this BioGold so that it does its thing. This also helps a lot with mycorrhiza, and this is an organic fertilizer. This is an organic fertilizer. You can go with synthetic fertilizers, or you can go with organic fertilizers. People will sometimes tell you that you cannot burn your trees with an organic fertilizer. That is what they should probably say is that is less likely. You can definitely burn your trees with too hot of an organic fertilizer. So I have heard other people say that they're synthetic fertilizers. They don't like to use those because of salts. I gotta say, I'm not sure. I've always been a fan of organic, so I'm not really sure why it is that synthetics would leave behind salt. But I'm just, as much as I'm just passing along, as much as I'm passing along what I heard. So whenever you look at fertilizers, a lot of times you'll see numbers on the front of the packaging, and those are going to be the main chemicals that the main ingredients or the main vitamins that the tree will be trying to uptake from this fertilizer application. And when it comes to, for instance, whenever it comes to wisterias, I believe it's nitrogen. They always tell you to go easy on the nitrogen if you want them to bloom. So based on that, I'm like, okay, I don't know. They didn't say how much, how big a tree, how little a tree, how much, how little nitrogen. So I'm just going to hold off on the fertilizing until I learn more about how much, how little, what is, And then, so that just was more than enough reason to avoid fertilizing until I knew more about it. And what I finally learned was, and what I was also afraid of, was something called stretching. I was afraid of having part of my bonsai get too long before the first branch, because as a beginner bonsai person, I didn't know how to fix that. To me, once I started getting a little bit more of a discriminating eye, I felt like the trunk from the surface to our first limb was elongated and too long. And to this day, I don't know if it was totally like that when I bought it. I could go back and look at our videos. That's the wonderful thing about being a video producer. You can go back and look at your trees and see things about them and go, wow, I have let myself off the hook over things that I thought I was doing wrong, to go back and look at the trees and go, no, you kind of bought it that way. Anyway, but I've also looked back at my trees and go, well, we need to address that. I don't think that looks as good as it. I don't think it looks as good now as it did back in the day. So that's good. But when it comes to feeding and stuff, I'd always felt, I wasn't really sure whether or not, when I looked at this with a more concerning eye, I thought this tree was too long. And this still ties into the fertilizer thing we're having. I thought that maybe it had elongated too much here from being fed improperly. And I didn't know. Also, I didn't know whether or not I should have seen that when I bought it, or whether or not that had happened on my watch. And that's kind of led to the thought pattern where I could go back and look at our source material from a couple of years ago and see. But that was another reason to walk, kind of gingerly in the fertilizer game. I was kind of worried about my plants stretching. I was also worried about them not blooming when we want them to bloom. This is a stick in the pot. If it doesn't bloom, that was kind of its one trick. So what I finally learned was that my bio-gold trick here. You saw that I wasn't using a measuring cup and I'm not pouring chemicals in a can. I'm just picking up these little lumps. And I could also throw those in tea bags because those are also what causes two things. That's what causes my moss to look so thick and full, and that's also what causes those burn marks you see on the top where those little bricks settle in as they're breaking down. I could fix that if I were concerned about it by tea bags. I could get tea bags and load those little things in tea bags, and I also will see these guys on the floor where they roll off. Tea bags would fix that also. So that's kind of there. But yeah, and I was also taught early on to think of it like a brake and an accelerator. So we're going to look at how much we're feeding, and we're going to look at how often we're feeding, and that's our brake and our accelerator, right? So, little spider right there. Anyway, so that's kind of it. Feeding got a lot easier once I realized that the fertilizer that I was concerned with stretching or causing my plant not to bloom was pretty well covered in this. This is 555. Those numbers that I started talking about at the beginning of our talk, they're all single digits. That means that they're not going to keep something from blooming, and they're going to supply everything a little bit of what it needs to keep going. And like a lot of other people who have been growing for a while, I fertilize year-round unless I have a specific reason to stop. For instance, when it comes to my Japanese black pines, we should be replenishing our bio-gold and making sure everybody is a black pine. Those guys down there, these are all ponderosas. We should be making sure that all of our black pines that are going to have their candles cut and their needles reduced, we need to make sure that they're on the right side of getting fed right now, because about 30 days prior to when I cut the candles, I'm going to go back through and pick all that stuff up, and they won't get fed again until after their second round of needles come out and harden off, which will be for us sometime after August. So yeah, that's a time when I deliberately take up the fertilizer. But because I live in a climate that's so mild here, most all of my stuff is still photosynthesizing to some degree or another, even in winter, or my roots are still growing great guns in the winter. With the trees heaving up in the pots in the winter, I don't see any reason to not feed, unless it's a timing issue for needle length or growth habits or something like that. So yeah, my habits of when I do my feeding and when I stop might vary a little bit, because I live in a place where I don't have as harsh of a winter, and if I've got trees also that are evergreens, and I'm looking for them to put on stuff, then there's not a lot of point in holding on or putting on the brakes for that. But say my more developed trees, they should be getting fed less. So that would be giving them less gas, but not maybe putting on the brakes. So we're probably still going to feed them from the same time periods to this time period, but we're going to do that less because they're already a developed tree. We're trying to maintain and sustain stuff. We're not trying to maintain and sustain stuff plus put on more, like the way we're doing this oak here. That is a quick synopsis of, if you want to learn about the different, magnesium, potassium, you know, and all these are our basic fertilizer ingredients. If you want to, and then further learn what they do, and there's people who thoroughly enjoy that. I'm not one of those. I'm more of a find something that everybody else is using, find out whether or not you think they know what they're doing or not, and then follow suit, and then start learning about other stuff, and do that until something tells me that that's an issue. So I could have taken off on everything there is to know about fertilizers and the different ingredients and the best ways to go about them, and you know, and I've known people who were like that. They were like soil keepers, soil walkers. You know, it's like we need this. Gotta take a chunk of sheetrock and boom, there's calcium, or something, you know, something like. But they just knew how to get ingredients. You know, they were like walking alchemists and or MacGyvers for that. They just knew how to balance their soil and look at their leaves and tell what was short and know why it was short. And I admire that, and I don't think that's necessarily something I have to worry so much about here, where we kind of get an even break climate-wise. And then just knowing about feeding and getting your watering right means that you're heading off a lot of predators right there. And then if you top that off with a little bit of prevention, or, you know, just have some preventative measures, you know, that you will have learned about in the back of your head, so that you at least know where your resources are if you need them, is what I would say. But that's the beginners. That's the beginners. If you've just kind of caught up with this rambling here, I've got an ingredient. I've got a product here that's basically organic. I've told you that a dose is three of those guys, boom, in the palm of your hand area. And then look at how many palms of your hand areas you have, and put that many doses down. That would be for something that's growing and you've got building work to do, like your pre-bonsai. A finished bonsai, you would back off the accelerator pedal end of that, and then the brake pedals would be when you take that up, right? Or stop fertilizing. That would be your brake pedal. So that covers this. My bald cypress, they right now are so far in development, they're getting fed year-round. Our oaks, same deal. The black pines, on again, off again, and right now, all of them should be in on again state. Also, any little black pines that I have that aren't in a bonsai pot, or having their roots restrained by a bonsai pot, they should be probably go into the get fed year-round category. If I'm not making the needles small by candle cutting, because they're in grow pots instead of bonsai pots, then there's no point in holding back their nutrients. Let them grow that sacrifice branch and all that other stuff that we need to develop. All right, so that is our quick to do on fertilizer. You could take that basic info and go to your bonsai supplier and say something that you know of that is organic that would work, and you've got a basic idea how to use it. And if you want to take off from there and be a nutrient whisperer to trees, there is some excellent sources out there. My teachers at Mariah Live are getting really into the chemical end of good horticulture, and it's good. I'm just kind of waiting for the abridged version, I suppose. I'm a little lazy on the alchemy. Anyway, like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you, and she got that one that we dropped early on. I saw her going for that just a minute ago. And thank you all so much for watching. You don't have to get them all. I'll give them to you in a second. Thank you all so much for watching. It's 24-minute, our Sunday show. Beautiful day here, huh? That's something we don't do enough of just go, this is our garden. Let's just enjoy our garden. Always with the lessons.